The Daylamites or Daylamites were an Iranian people inhabiting the mountainous regions of northern Iran on the southern shore of the Caspian Sea. They were employed as soldiers from the time of the Sasanian Empire, and long resisted the Muslim conquest of Persia and subsequent Islamization. In the 930s, the Daylamite Buyid dynasty emerged and managed to gain control over much of modern-day Iran, which it held until the coming of the Seljuq Turks in the mid-11th century. Origins, language and equipment. The Daylamites lived in the highlands of Daylam, part of the Alborz range, between Gilan and Tabaristan. However, the earliest Zoroastrian and Christian sources indicate that the Daylamites originally came from Anatolia near the Tigris, where Iranian ethno-linguistic groups, including Zazas, live today. They spoke the Daylami language, a now extinct northwestern Iranian variety similar to that of the neighboring Gilites. During the Sasanian Empire, they were employed as high-quality infantry. According to the Byzantine historians Procopius and Agathias, they were a warlike people and skilled in close combat, being armed each with a sword, a shield and spears or javelins. History. Pre-Islamic period, Seleucid and Parthian period. The Daylamites first appear in historical records in the late 2nd century BCE, where they are mentioned by Polybius, who erroneously calls them a lambda upsilon mu alpha omicron iota instead of delta epsilon lambda upsilon mu alpha omicron iota. In the Middle Persian prose Karnamagayar-ir Pabagan Artabanus V of Parthia summoned all the troops from Ray, Damavand, Dalam, and Pardashquarga to fight the newly established Sasanian Empire. According to the letter of Tanzar, during this period, Daylam, Gilan, and Ruyin belonged to the kingdom of Gushnasp, who was a Parthian vassal but later submitted to Sasanian Emperor Ardashir I. Sasanian period. The descendants of Gushnasp were still ruling until in California, 520, when Kavad I appointed his eldest son, Kawas, as the king of the former lands of the Gusnaspid dynasty. In 522, Kavad I sent an army under a certain Buya against Faktarmaya of Iberia. This Buya was a native of Daylem, which is proven by the fact that he bore the title Wariz, a Daylamite title also used by Kharazad, the Daylamite military commander who conquered Yemen in 570 during the reign of Khosrau I, and his Daylamite troops would later play a significant role in the conversion of Yemen to the nascent Islam. Daylamites also took part in the siege of Varchiopolis in 552. They supported the rebellion of Bahram Choban against Khosrau II, but he later employed an elite detachment of 4,000 Daylamites as part of his guard. Some Muslim sources maintain that following the Sasanian defeat in the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah, the 4,000-strong Daylamite contingent of the Sasanian Guard, along with other Iranian units, defected to the Arab side, converting to Islam. Islamic period. Resistance to the Arabs. The Daylamites managed to resist the Arab invasion of their own mountainous homeland for several centuries under their own local rulers. Warfare in the region was endemic, with raids and counter-raids by both sides. Under the Arabs, the old Iranian fortress city of Qazvin continued in its Sasanian-era role as a bulwark against Daylamite raids. According to the historian Al-Tabari, Daylamites and Turkic peoples were considered the worst enemies of the Arab Muslims. The Abbasid Caliphate penetrated the region and occupied parts of it, but their control was never very effective. During the reign of Harun al-Rashid, several Shiite Muslims fled to the Daylamites, most of whom remained pagan. with a few Zoroastrians and Christians, to escape persecution. Among these refugees were some Alads, who began the gradual conversion of the Daylamites to Shia Islam. Nevertheless, a strong Iranian identity remained ingrained in the peoples of the region, along with an anti-Arab mentality. Local rulers such as the Buyids and the Ziyarids made a point of celebrating old Iranian and Zoroastrian festivals. The Dynamite Expansion. In the mid-9th century, need increased in the Abbasid Caliphate for mercenary soldiers in the royal guard and the army. Thus they began recruiting Daylamites, who although during this period were not as strong in numbers as the Turks, Khorasanis, the Farghanas, and the Egyptian Arab tribesmen of the Maghariba. From 912 thirds to 916 sevenths, a Daylamite soldier, Ali ibn Wasudan, was chief of police in Isfahan during the reign of al-Muqtadir. For many decades, it remained customary for the caliph's personal guards to include the Daylamites as well as the ubiquitous Turks. Culture. Religion. The Daylamites were most likely adherents of some form of Iranian paganism, while a minority of them were Zoroastrian and Christian. According to al-Biruni, the Daylamites and Gilites lived by the rule laid down by the mythical Aphrodite. The Church of the East had spread among them due to the activities of John of Dalam, and bishoprics are reported in the remote area as late as the 790s, while it is possible that some remnants survived there until the 14th century. Customs, equipment and appearance. Many habits and customs of the Daylamites have been recorded in historical records. The men were strikingly tough and capable of lasting terrible privations. They were armed with javelins and battle axes, and had tall shields painted in grey colors. In battle, they would usually form a wall with their shields against the attackers. Some Daylamites would use javelins with burning naphtha. A poetic portrayal of Daylamite armed combat is present in Fakhruddin Asadi Gurgen's Visan Ramin. A major disadvantage of the Daylamites was the low amount of cavalry that they had, which compelled them to work with Turkish mercenaries. The Daylamites exaggeratedly mourned over the dead, and even over themselves in failure. In 963, the Buyid ruler of Iraq, Mu'izz al-Dawla, popularized mourning of Muharram in Baghdad, which may have played a part in the evolution of the Taziyah. The medieval Persian geographer Estakri describes the Daylamites as a bold but inconsiderate people, being thin in appearance and having fluffy hair. They practiced agriculture and had herds, but only a few horses. They also grew rice, fished, and produced silk textiles. According to al-Muqaddasi, the Daylamites were handsome and had beards. According to the author of the Hudud al-Alam, the Daylamite women took part in agriculture like men. According to Rudrawari, they were equals of men in strength of mind, force of character, and participation in the management of affairs. Furthermore, the Daylamites also strictly practiced endogamy.